A famous Court of Appeals judge once said a grand jury could indict a ham sandwich. Now, I believe in the rule of law, but I'm not going to sugarcoat this one. The indictment of Texas Governor Rick Perry for abuse of his veto power and coercion of a public servant is pure, unadulterated hogwash. It makes DAs like me cringe in embarrassment. And it's not just me. Even former Obama White House political advisor David Axelrod calls the indictment, quote, pretty sketchy. Now, I've spent my career in the assignment of blame, more than 3 decades as a prosecutor, a Superior Court judge, and an elected district attorney. I have impaneled grand juries, instructed grand juries, and ruled on grand jury actions. Nothing about this indictment makes sense. A sitting governor facing 109 years in prison because he threatened to veto funding to a drunk district attorney's public integrity unit? Really? No one disputes that the law gives the governor the power to veto funding. Period. End of the story. So now every time a governor vetoes funding or legislation, will he or she be subject to an investigation or an indictment because people complained it was political? A little backstory here. The DA, Rosemary Lemberg, is a drunk. Yes, the chief law enforcement officer of Austin County, Texas, is not just a drunk, she's a convicted drunk driver. She's actually spent time in jail. Imagine, the chief law enforcement officer is a convict who served jail time. Now, I have no sympathy for drunk drivers. They don't have to get behind the wheel of a car, especially a DA who certainly had other options. On the night that she chose to drive her Lexus, she had an open vodka bottle on the front seat and was weaving in and out of a bicycle lane. I've seen the consequences of driving drunk. Innocents slaughtered by thousands of pounds of steel because a drunk chose to get behind the wheel of a car. And folks, it's even worse than this. Her blood alcohol level was 3 times the legal limit. And her behavior, both before and after her arrest, was so outrageous, so threatening, so belligerent, so combative, the woman had to be strapped down. And this woman actually thinks that she should remain the person who decides who gets indicted and who doesn't? So Governor Rick Perry says that someone like this is not fit to be DA or certainly to run the public integrity unit, adding that he would veto funding for that program. Now, DA Rosemary doesn't like that, takes umbrage at this, along with a watchdog group that files a complaint against Perry, and a special prosecutor is appointed. Now, I created a public integrity unit in my office for the specific purpose of investigating public officials and maintaining the integrity of their offices. You may recall that the Austin County District Attorney's Office is known for ridiculous political prosecutions. Evidence. Republican Governor Kay Bailey Hutchinson indicted 3 times, acquitted every time. Republican Congressman Tom DeLay indicted, conviction immediately overturned. Austin County, in case you don't know, is the only Democratic county in the completely red state of Texas. Bigger picture. Governor Rick Perry is frequently mentioned as a 2016 presidential candidate. As of late, his handling of immigration at the Texas border has been applauded nationwide. Republican Governor Chris Christie also under federal investigation for a traffic jam. And Republican Governor Scott Walker under federal investigation, both of them frequently mentioned as possible 2016 candidates. Like I said, a judge was once famously quoted as saying a grand jury could indict a ham sandwich. Apparently, they like ham in Austin County, Texas. And that's my open at the bottom of the hour. And with me now, Democratic strategist and Fox News contributor Joe Trippi. Good evening, Joe. Who's behind this?
Good to be with you, Judge. Gosh, I mean, look, this really is way beyond the pale. I mean, you can't. I agree with David Axelrod, you and others. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And frankly, I actually think it helps Governor Perry. I mean, he's going to be going into places like Iowa, New Hampshire. Sure, they're going to hear that he's been indicted by a grand jury, but then when they find out why. And his explanation, I think it's actually, particularly in a Republican primary, going to help him if he decides to make the run. Yeah, so it's just not. I mean, this is just, it does reek of politics all the way around.
But, you know, Joe, I have to tell you, I mean, it may help, and you'll get people saying this is absurd, but there are those who understand, as I do, that this is a long process. He's going to be arraigned and printed and mugged, and they're going to have adjournments, and it's going to be set for trial. I mean, he's going to be preoccupied with this unless some judge has the strength to recognize that this is not the kind of thing for which you indict someone. Every governor in every state in this country would be indicted if that were the standard.
No, and every president. I mean, you can't. If the standard is you don't agree with the veto, and so you're going to go indict the guy, that's going to happen in states all over the country. I mean, I used to remember, call me old-fashioned, but if you didn't agree with the governor's veto, it's called you overrode it. You actually went back into the legislature and got the votes to override the governor's veto, and the fact that they couldn't. Would seem to me to indicate that the legislature agreed or didn't have the votes to put that together. That's usually the end of it. This is taking it. This is to get the stories that a future presidential potential candidate has been indicted by a grand jury. And like you said, and we all know this, to a lot of lay people that sounds horrifying that a governor's been indicted. But as you point out, ham sandwich.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting, Joe, and tell me if I'm wrong here. You've got this woman who refuses to step down. I mean, her behavior, I don't know if anybody has seen what she did when she was arrested. It is an outrage what she did when she was arrested, threatening people, kicking doors, combative, all kinds of things. But, for her to draw attention to herself, all right, that, look, I'm a drunk and I had an open bottle of vodka, and by the way, it was calls to 911 that got the police to stop her. It seems that at the end of the day, you have to say to yourself, there has to be something in this for her at the end, for her to be so aggressive on this thing. It makes no sense.
Well, I mean, first of all, she didn't step down. She's still in office, and she looks like she plans on staying there. I think a lot of us would have resigned had we been in that situation. Yeah. So I don't quite get this, other than it's clearly political, and I think it's clearly designed to embarrass the governor. I don't think I would be amazed if it did go to trial and he was, and he actually was found guilty and served 99 years. I just think that would be, crazy. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. No. So this is about the stories.
Before we go to break, Joe, let me just say, go ahead.
This is about the stories that are out there now, and to embarrass him.
I have to interrupt you, Joe. Kay Bailey Hutchison was not a governor. She was a senator, clearly. Joe Trippi, thanks so much. Coming up, the world's falling apart and Obama's foreign policy blunders keep getting worse. Charles Krauthammer next.